Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowigowen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first dates. And this time I was made to watch 3 Days of the Condor.
Yes, it's the 1975 political thriller that is kind of so 70s you can't stand it, and is also not very political and not very thrilling in my eyes. But Robert Redford's in it, and he's pretty, so yeah. And there's one particular scene that is the whole reason I wanted to show this today, which we're going to talk about shortly. Yes, it is 1975, Sidney Pollack directing, Robert Redford starring. I feel like they were sort of a power duo and that sounds like not what I meant it to be. Nope. And did a lot of things together. I can't remember what they were now. Pollack directed All the President's Men, right? And I feel like they did other things together,
let's
too.
See. The Way We Were, Out of Africa, that has them teaming together. I'm just quickly trying to look through the list here. Havana has Redford in it. I don't see All the President's Men on here, but it's possible I just haven't gotten to it.
Okay, maybe he didn't.
This list is in no order whatsoever.
Oh, I always love those. Well,
War Hunt.
Okay. Well, anyway, so they had done a couple of other things, and this too. This is a movie that was based on a book, and there were several sequels to the book, which are not included in this movie. And then just recently, like in the last 5 years, there was a TV series made of it that went for 2 seasons. I didn't know it existed. I'm not sure it's been available in the US, but I kind of want to see it just to see how they update this to a 21st century sensibility and technology and all kinds of things. Anyway, so it's sort of a slow burn because, okay, so for the first 10 minutes, what did you think this was about? Because you had not seen this before. I don't think I told you anything going in.
I don't know. I mean, it's felt like a lot of setup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, what you're shown in the first few minutes is like a very low level guy analyzing stuff, and like it already read like spy stuff from the very beginning.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. That's right. Because early, So you're at the offices of, what is it? The American Literary Historical Society, which is such a, that means nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what that is. It's just, a brownstone in New York City, and everyone is getting to work for the day. And Robert Redford, Joe Turner, is late, which apparently is a common thing. And at some point, you see somebody in a car outside checking off the names of the employees as they walk in. So that's true. That doesn't make it look like a spy thing.
And the lady who rings the buzzer has a gun in her drawer. And
the secretary who lets people in. Yeah.
And there's a security guard there for some reason. And then it's all like...
And there's like a closed circuit camera.
Closed circuit camera. There's like teletype machines, printing things. And yeah, like it just seemed like this is a cover for something. Like that was the immediate vibe that I got. Like,
oh, okay.
Oh, this is some kind of a cover thing. This is the CIA, NSA, whatever kind of thing going on here. Yeah. I mean, it immediately read to me as spy stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, and that's what it is. It is a cover. But yeah, I don't think in 1975 people had absorbed all the tropes. I think it was a slow dawning, things are not what they seem. But what they do there is they read a lot of literature, taken very broadly, books, magazine articles, graphic novels, some from all over the world, and they look for plots that could be used as CIA operations. Basically, it
sounded to me like what they're looking for are plots that match current CIA classified information. So
to see if anyone is spilling the beans via code or something.
So that something would be going out in a publication that is actually code for for this or that. Yeah. So yeah, it seemed more like they were actively looking for things that could be CIA related versus this might be good to use as a CIA
which
thing.
that seems very backward. Like, why would you do that way? That's what the Wikipedia entry says, but that doesn't make any sense.
It's having seen the movie just the one time, it's hard to remember for sure.
Yeah, well, I think it's sort of, and it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't really matter what they do because that's dispensed with quickly. But they have a whole computer setup that was probably extremely high tech at the time that will scan an entire book and it like turns the pages for you, so you don't have to stand there and turn the page every time, which is fantastic. And
and it's very mechanical. Yeah,
and there's the whole time there's just this, it's a dot matrix printer. And it's an office in what used to be a house, which I have a soft spot for those. This is like a brownstone, but at my university, a lot of the offices were in old houses. So like someone's office clearly was a bedroom, and the bathroom has a shower in it, and there's a kitchen in the, that kind of thing. And my dad's office when I was a kid had been a house too. But yes, even though it is meant to look like just another day at the office, there's somebody outside checking things off, and he looks very sinister. And I think that's Joubert there, and he's got a trench coat and a hat, and he's Max von Sydow, so he looks sinister. Well, at some point, Turner goes to get everybody lunch, and he goes out through the back entrance because it's raining, and this saves him time in the rain. And so the people up front have counted who's there, and they're like, okay, there's supposed to be 8 people here, and there's 7 there, and this is all we're going to get today. And so this is everybody, and they go in and they systematically kill everybody. But they don't realize that they missed Turner because they were watching for people to come out the front, and he didn't. So,
well, I think they know they missed Turner.
Well, okay, they don't realize that, like, how closely they missed him.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But yes, so they know that they still have to get him.
Yeah.
He comes back, and I mean, he must have just missed them because the secretary at the front was smoking a cigarette when the people came in and shot her, and it's still burning. Yeah. Like, and it's lying on her chest and hasn't lit anything on fire. So like we're talking seconds, like they're probably still warm. And he comes back, and this is when if you hadn't picked up on it by this point, this is when it starts to become clear that this is not just your average wonky academic building. He calls into the major and says, oh, my section's been hit. And they give him all these, wait an hour and call this number and what's your code name? He's Condor. We don't find anyone else's except for the secretary is the Nightingale. Yeah. So I imagine they were all birds. So the California Condor was a big thing at the time, and Redford is famously from California. He's got like sort of surfer good looks, and I'm wondering if that was part of him getting cast. I don't know. The Condor was in the original book, so they didn't make that up for him. And from then on, it's this Redford or Turner is like on the run in New York City, trying to escape the people who are tracking him down because the main assassin, Joubert, and his flunkies are trying to get him and anybody that they missed and anybody who knows about this whole thing. And he's trying to figure out who's on his side and who's not. And he ends up kidnapping basically a woman named Kathy, played by Faye Dunaway, just so he can stay in her apartment and like stay out of sight for a while. And the relationship that they develop is so bizarre.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dare I say unhealthy? I wrote in my notes, Kathy, run.
Yeah.
And this is where we've talked about in other movies about some actors who just exude being a good guy so much that you forgive their characters for a lot that you really shouldn't, and you wouldn't if it was played by anybody else. Yeah. And I think Redford has that quality too.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm just like, oh, he's Bob Woodward. Right. He's the natural. He's like he's a golden boy. He glows, right? He's
Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah. Yes. looking at the camera and nodding like
That also Sidney Pollack.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They must have been a dream team.
Oh yeah.
So he, like, he goes up to her on the street, Kathy. And she's like, what? How do you know me? And he goes up to her and presses a gun against her back. And they drive back to her apartment and he explains briefly what's happened. And is like, I just need to hide out here. But then he has to leave to do something and he ties her up.
Yeah.
With nylons, though. It's like, that's not very secure. I feel like she could.
If you stretch a nylon under tension, it's pretty.
Okay, well, maybe. And early on, they drop this bit of exposition about him because he seems like, just this mild-mannered bookworm.
Yeah.
But he was in the military and he had some experience in like telecommunications and did stuff with phone lines, which is important later. So like probably has a very particular set of skills and he's darker than he looks. He comes back and he unties her and she's all mad at him, unsurprisingly. And he wants her to, he's asking her questions about, do you have a man that lives here? Is anyone going to notice that you're gone? And she says, you can't ask me personal questions. You come in here and you rough me up. And he says, I didn't rough you up. I didn't rape you. And I'm like, is that what we're using as the benchmark here? This is very strange. Apparently. And earlier when the secretary woman had the gun in her desk drawer, and Turner is like, oh, yeah, she was afraid of being raped, so she kept the gun. And I'm like, why are we being so casual about this as this thing that might or might not happen to women? Like,
it was New York City.
In the 70s, I guess. It was, is that when they were in the high crime era? I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, so then, I don't know. Then they have some kind of moment, and she's showing him her photographs, which feel to me like a high schooler did them. It's like the woods in winter and a park bench with nobody on it. And it's all very bleak. And there's nothing that's shot through a chain link fence, but I feel like she has that in her back catalog.
Yeah, but also like you have to understand that like it's one of those things when you see something that is today a massive trope
it wasn't a trope yet.
Yeah. The solitary nature of her, and it's meant to be like revealing of her character. So like you wouldn't want it to be this subtle, nuanced thing. Like it almost needs to be like borderline amateurish in its like beating you over the head with because that's part of how he clues into her as a character, like her human character, that she takes pictures of, and that he's seeing that this is like, it's not quite winter. It's November. It's the leaves are gone, but it's not cold. It's not, everything's not dead yet, and it's solitary and you're by yourself and yada, 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 yada. Like it's one of those things where it's like, you can't, it's not a moment for nuance. Sometimes you just have to be like, sometimes it's got to be like, oh, she paints flowers that look like vaginas. Like, it's just got to be that,
Well, that would have told me more about someone's personality than this. And I mean, you're right. Things that are tropes now were not always tropes, but I'm just looking at this going,
I mean, I'm not going to just say that it's good, but I think that they have something to say, especially when taken as a set, because she has them all laid out in a row.
Yeah.
And when you look at them as a series, she's very deliberately photographing public places that are normally filled with people when they're absent of people. And he makes that observation, which I think, anyone would tell you is any art critic or any, first year, whatever, would tell you is like a way to convey loneliness or being separated from, feeling separated from, from the pack and all this stuff. So, it's ham-fisted, I think, by today's standards, but it did what it needed to do. Like there is a photographic, eye to it, the way in which she photographs the goalposts without a net, with just like fragments of broken net hanging on them, using them like, your chain link fence. The angle from which she photographs the park bench that's empty, with like a bleak sky behind it, instead of the choosing of the angles. Like there's something borderline artistic about it. But yeah, by looking at them by today's standards, yeah, I think they're a little, but they told me something about her character, and I think they sold this thing that comes up a couple of times, is that her most personal photos she doesn't show to anyone,
Right.
and he mentions wanting to see those sometime.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if those images are a little bit by the numbers, it's because those are the ones that she deems fit for the public. And, her truly artistic and her truly revealing photos about herself are the ones that she chooses not to show to anybody, which is what intrigues him. And, there's something there. And I feel like it's probably more explored or more spelled out in a novel than they have time to do here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're just trying to convey that she's looking for something, that she's not happy with the life that she has right now, that she's despite having a man, quote unquote, she still feels some level of loneliness.
Yeah, their relationship is not solid. We get a brief conversation between them because she was supposed to leave to meet him out of town on a skiing trip, and he's like, "Where are you? You do this all the time." Blah blah blah. Blah. Like, it's not great. Yeah. And she lives in this sort of dark basement apartment, and there's and Turner is thinking about, am I what I seem? I seem to be this mild-mannered bookworm, and I'm not. But blah, blah, blah. So there's something.
And she's, if you really want to dig into it, he first observes her at a store buying stuff for a trip that she's already late for.
Yeah.
Or like right on the cusp of needing to leave for.
Yeah.
So that says something about her dedication to this idea of the trip, which the guy takes pains to explain has been in the planning stages for quite some time. And it's a very big deal. And here she is buying her like snowsuit the day she has to leave, hour before she has to leave.
And she's got to get up to Vermont.
To go to Vermont.
Long drive.
So, there's a lot of sort of, if you want to critically analyze it, I think there's a lot of things there that are helpful. But to be clear, I'm not defending the photos as good, quote unquote, but I think that they're doing the job they need to do.
Well, okay.
It's like if you want to convey that someone is like an outsider artist and you have them doing Pollock style paintings. Like, there's nothing interesting about that at this point, but you want like, oh, he does splatter art. So clearly it's like a shorthand for outsider artist, maybe some challenges in the brain chemistry, that sort of thing. It's sort of a shorthand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my thoughts about was like, how does she make a living with this? That doesn't seem like that's very lucrative, and particularly if that's your thing.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway, that's not the point.
Yeah.
But,
you could, there's plenty of analysis that could go into that, but I think, it's not worth.
No, but, so they have this moment where they connect about this, and then they have sex in the world's least sexy sex scene.
Yeah.
She's not into it at all.
Except for when she is.
None of it. She looks like she's gazing off into space. Like, did I take the chicken out of the freezer?
I think very deliberately. I think Pollock is a very specific, like he's an accomplished filmmaker by 75. He's got 4 or 5 at least movies under his belt. What he's doing there from like a film language standpoint, from my eyes as a one-time viewer. He is showing her looking off into the distance, and then immediately cuts to a much more enthusiastic look into Joe's eyes. He shoots her seeming distant and distracted, and then immediately transitions, because there are these abrupt cuts. It's going from like her looking off into the middle distance, seeming not interested, to her like passionately participating. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I think he's trying to, show this juxtaposition of like, she knows that this isn't what she should be doing because she's in a relationship and all these other things, but that she can't resist like the enigma of this man who is, like you say, he's Robert Redford, so he's attractive, but he's also like somehow, despite the fact that he's saying, quote unquote, crazy sounding things, he seems genuine. He seems like he actually needs help. and what does a woman love more than a man that seems to need to be fixed and helped?
And he didn't rape her after
And
all.
he didn't,
so.
right? He didn't.
Well,
So I feel like there's some language of film going on there, and I like you're right in that sometimes she seems disinterested, but I think that is intentionally juxtaposed with images where she is enthusiastically participating to create that dilemma within her character. Is that, in the moments that she's looking off into the middle distance, she's thinking about her boyfriend and the life that she has now. And in the moments that she's enthusiastically participating, she's thinking about this handsome stranger and his, the world that she could be swept up in if she chose him, sort of thing. I don't know.
That's a nice take on it. I don't know. I didn't see enthusiasm at all. Well, part of it too is, and this is also probably just the standards of film in 75 versus now, oh dear God, 50 years later. I don't think they're ever, you just see them from the side, from like the shoulders up.
Yeah.
There's no nudity. There's no, like they could be just lying there.
Yeah.
So it's not sexy at all. And I was thinking, how would you do that today? Very differently. Even if you had that same mood of her uncertainty and being of two minds about whether she should be doing this, they would be much more explicit how she felt and what they were doing. So I guess
Maybe.
it's an interesting look at the way that we used to show these things versus how we would do it now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things where I think it devolves too quickly for me into like film school talk, despite having not been to film school, but like that sort of level of armchair film analysis, like artistic film analysis. But yeah, like I see what you're saying.
Well, just for me as a viewer, I was like, lady, you have Robert Redford in your bed.
Right.
Focus.
Yeah.
Come on.
I do think that there is an intentional lack of passion in it, because I think for each of them, as opposed to it being a passionate act, it is something that they needed in the moment, each of them. And it's not an act about fulfilling passion or even necessarily sexual gratification. It's just something else.
You need to touch somebody.
She is a person who is alone in the world, and feels isolated, and he is a person who has literally become isolated by the situation that he finds himself in. And, here are these two very isolated people, and the scene is often shot in a way where she is 3/4 of the shot and he's very little in it. And then he is 3/4 of the shot and she's very little in it, kind of going back and forth again with that theme of like, he needs this, she needs this. It's not necessarily about this passionate love. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to see how a modern, how like a Darren Aronofsky or like someone like that would shoot a scene like that is meant, I think, to convey much more than these two people did a sex because you need a sex in the movie.
Yeah.
I think there's meaning there that is beyond the surface, and is probably not like really worth scratching down to get to in this form of podcast. But yeah, I mean, I think this is indicative of how we see things. I mean, I do look for like, what is the intent of the filmmaker more than just sitting there as like an audience member who's experiencing it, like honestly just experiencing it.
Okay. Well, after this, Kathy is firmly on his side, and they go off to figure out what the heck is going on. Now, the previous day, his handler had said, okay, meet your whoever at this intersection, and they'll bring you in. And it was this weird, like, walk into this alley from this side of the street, and they'll be at the other, and they'll meet you in the middle, and it's all feeling very hinky, and it turns out it was a trap. They sent a friend of his to meet him because he said, I want someone that I know there. And the friend was there with the handler. The handler tries to kill Turner. Fails, but then kills the friend who's there. And the friend, Turner shoots the handler with the gun that he took from the secretary's desk. And so you've got one dead guy and one injured guy, and the injured guy, who is the bad guy, tells the police or whoever it was that Turner shot both of them. So now the CIA thinks that Turner has gone rogue and is bad and is on the run and he needs to be stopped and yada, yada, yada. So Turner's got to figure out what is going on. And they end up figuring out that Joubert, the assassin, has done several operations with Wicks, who is the handler who wanted to kill Turner. And that they've also done some stuff with another assassin who tracks them to Kathy's apartment and tries to kill them there. And so they're figuring out this is a cover-up or a setup or something, and they figure out who's in charge of it all. And they go to his house in Vermont and threaten to kill him. And then Joubert shows up and kills the guy and makes it look like a suicide. And Joubert is fascinating because he's very clinical about all of it. Like, he's not invested in anything that he's doing.
He doesn't care about sides or what's right and wrong.
He's like, well, the first job was to kill you, and then the job was to kill him, and so now I don't have to kill you.
Yeah. Well, the guy who paid me to kill you is now dead.
So
because someone else paid me to kill him. So I don't need to kill you anymore.
Yeah. And then he's like, and you're going to have a very hard life now, so maybe you should become an assassin with me.
Yeah.
And Turner's like, well, no, I don't think so.
So this is the thing, like the Joubert Joe relationship is, so there's a lot of things about this movie. I hesitate to say that I may have liked this movie more than you.
Yes.
Upon watching it.
I think you did.
So there's a fascinating exploration with Joubert's character because he is truly a professional assassin. Mm-hmm. Like you said, he doesn't care about right or wrong. He cares about who's paying. He cares about the job until he doesn't need to care about the job anymore. And he talks about how this brings a certain amount of peace and there's a symmetry to it. Mm-hmm. And he's fascinated by, and this is something I hope that the novel or maybe even the show version of this would spend more time on. He's fascinated by the seemingly calculated nature of Joe's moves, because initially he says he's tasked with, so he tells Atwood's, people that they know that they've missed Joe, and that the job was 8 and he's only gotten 7 because the one guy that was missing, they killed him at his apartment.
Right.
And so that's part of it. There's no extra charge for that. Obviously that's part of what he was paid to do, and he will do it because he doesn't leave any loose ends, and he doesn't leave a job incomplete. And they realize that Wicks is compromised enough that they need him done too. And so Joubert's like, no problem. I'll do Wicks for free as a bonus, because this wouldn't have happened had I gotten Joe in the first place. Yeah. And so Joubert sends the mailman to take care of Joe because he perceives Wicks as the greater threat. And then Joe bests the mailman in a melee, and they end up killing the mailman assassin. And Joubert realizes he's underestimated Joe, and he starts to, I think, envision Joe as this suitable foe. Like, I didn't give this guy credit. That was my mistake.
Now he's worthy of my steel.
He has a face-to-face. So the way that he sends the mailman is that he has a face-to-face with Joe when they both go to the apartment of the friend that got killed. The friend's wife does not yet know that he's been killed, and Joe goes there to try and
suss out
who's been talking to her or whatever. He ends up sending her to stay elsewhere, and on the elevator ride down, he bumps into Joubert, and Joe, despite being, we get that he's a trained soldier, but he worked in the telecommunications part of the army. He worked for Bell Labs, so and obviously is a very smart guy. Reads all the time, very smart guy. Joubert gets off the elevator on the floor where the friend lives. Joe gets on the elevator Joubert gets back on the elevator, and
Yeah.
Joe is smart enough to immediately clock this as an odd thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a moment where they're riding down the elevator together, and he's sort of sussing out Joe's, what does Joe know or not know? He's offering him, he's speaking to him a little bit. Joubert is speaking to Joe a little bit. And he notices that Joe is making like smart decisions. Joubert offers Joe to leave the elevator first, and he says, no way. He says, oh, by all means, you go first. So Joubert leaves first. Joubert exits the building. Joe pretty easily realizes, for a smart guy, that there's probably something waiting for him outside the building. There's a bunch of Utes there in the stairwell leading outside. He convinces them, some
come out, help me jump my car battery or something.
Well, no, he asks specifically the black guy to help him break into his car. He says, does anybody have a coat hanger?
That's right.
I locked myself out of my car. And then he goes, he looks at the black character and goes, surely you've broken into a car before.
I didn't notice that.
Yes.
But then he's offering them $5. And I was like, what is that in 75 money? That's a lot.
And so Joe gets them to walk out with him and act as a sort of a human shield until he can get away.
Yes.
Joubert is, surprised by this. Joe then runs to the stolen car, or the car, Kathy's car, and Joubert uses his gun scope as a telescope and is able to see the tag number, and therefore they learn where he's likely hiding.
Right.
So I think Joubert is quickly starting to realize that I think Joubert is thinking this guy is more than he appears.
Yeah.
And
which is sort of theme.
Yeah. And my favorite moments is after what you were just describing, where they kill Atwood, where Joubert kills Atwood and they walk outside. Joubert is genuinely interested in Joe's methods, and he asks him, the girl, Kathy, how was she selected? And he's like, chance. Like, Joe literally just happened to duck into a store because he heard a cop car. He happened to duck into like a sporting goods store. He hid amongst the racks, and he heard her giving her information, her name and everything. That's how he got her name to say on the street, Kathy.
Yeah.
And just by chance, he heard this lady's name, and she happened to be parked right outside the store, and he happened to, be able to get into her car with her and take her. Everything Joe has done has largely been chance and happenstance and just a smart person making good decisions. And Joubert, as a professional assassin who has honed all these skills, I think sees a raw, uncut gem in front of him who is like, this guy would be good at this job because he has the instincts that you can't teach.
Yeah.
He never really falls into a trap that Joubert has set, even when he does do a dumb thing, which is, he doesn't understand that Joubert likely got his license plate when he was on his way out, and he goes back to Kathy's, a trained spy would be like, no, we're made. I drove away in your car, which has your tag on it, which means they'll have your address within minutes. We got to get out of here. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So there's this really interesting dynamic between Joe and Joubert where he really respects this amateur and is really interested in figuring it out. And when he figures out that it is just dumb luck but not dumb luck, it's brains and dumb luck that's gotten Joe to this position where he uncovered a sleeper cell secret organization within the CIA and found the head of it, and like was able to then confront the guy. Like, to get that far as an untrained amateur
without many resources
just on your wits alone, this guy is, he would rather be with this guy than against him. Joubert would rather be against Joe than with Joe than against him.
Yeah.
And that was super interesting to watch that dynamic, even though it's not as fully explored as I would want it to be, and would hope that it is better explored in the other interpretations of this, or the other media. But yeah, super interesting. Like, I really liked that part of it.
Yeah. One thing you talk about Joubert is just a consummate professional assassin. One thing that I noticed was when Turner comes out with his human shield, Joubert just realizes, okay, now I can't shoot him at all. And it's like, because we're not going to have any collateral damage. This needs to be done quietly and without hurting anybody else. So he doesn't even like try like, oh, maybe I'll get him and not the others, or it doesn't matter if I get the, like, he's just, okay, we're done.
Yeah. And it's not even that this needs to be done without like anybody getting hurt. For him, it's just complication. Because if he kills Joe in front of those 8 people, he's got to kill all 8 of those people, and nobody's paying him to kill those 8 people. You know, the idea of a lone guy walking out of a building by himself and you putting one in his brain, and he slumps over into the bushes, and you walk away, and there's no chance to link that to you. And we've already been told they're using ice bullets. There's a great Mythbusters episode where they actually did this. They did ice bullets.
Yeah, and that's the one where he learned it from Dick Tracy.
Maybe
I think so. Yeah,
but the ice bullets has been a thing.
Okay,
and this is one of the source materials that does the ice bullets. But yeah, I think he says he saw it on Dick Tracy. Of course, turns out ice bullets can't really survive being shot.
I was going to say,
they sort of blow apart.
The heat of the gunpowder is not going to.
It's not the heat; it's the force that blows the ice apart. Because the heat is sort of instantaneous and it's gone.
Okay.
It's the heat of the friction in the air, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the initial explosion wasn't the problem. I seem to remember them having was that the ice bullets would just come out of the gun in pieces because of the concussion of the. Of the propellant.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you can use ice as a dagger, though.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
In close combat, yes. As a sniper, not so much.
And I do think that there is a way to solve the ice bullet thing. It just needs to be the right caliber and so that you get an ice that can survive that initial impact, of the propellant and that sort of stuff.
You can have an ice cannon.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think that there were several things in this movie like that where I was like, oh, this is like a really interesting plot line, or this is a really cool, like you mentioned, we mentioned him working for Bell Labs, and having telecommunications. The phone stuff that he does in here is incredibly realistic.
Yeah.
As someone who I work in telecommunications, but I only just touched that part of the industry just barely. In school, I learned a little bit about punch down blocks and wiring a phone system. Never got to really implement any of it, but how all that stuff works, the sequenced wiring and all that sort of stuff. And you see in here something that a lot of people don't appreciate or can't appreciate these days. When he goes into I think he goes to the phone company, you see these racks just going off into the distance, and those racks are filled with those individual, like when the lady in Lassie is like, what extension please, and she plugs it in.
Bedford 247.
Yeah, those racks are full of those interchanges or whatever they're called, extensions and stuff. And having been in a couple of places like that, like one of our clients was in an old MCI head end, and going in there and seeing those racks just as far as the eye could see, still wired up, but it's been at that point years since anyone had used that sort of traditional phone system. That seeing that stuff behind the scenes is very cool, and the fact that the stuff that he does is incredibly realistic.
Yeah. Two things. It kind of reminded me of, I think it's in Black Christmas when they're trying to trace the call, and they just have to be in that back room where like there's a switch for every phone number in this area, and they just have to look for which one lights up. It was sort of like that.
Yeah, and that's like, people don't understand. That's how phones used to work. Like your phone number used to go to a physical slot on a board. And, at some point they figured out the switching, and they figured out just if everybody's plugged in and then all of those plugs go to a switch, we can mechanically and then computer-based switching. We can switch those and connect those to each other. But previously someone had to be like, okay, here's the plug that goes in your phone number, and the other end of this, I'm going to plug it into the person you want to call, and make a physical connection of a wire between your port that is your phone, that goes to your phone, and their port that goes to their phone. Like, it's amazing that when you see that technology at work, and then consider how far we've come.
Yeah. Well, and like I sometimes when I'm talking to our teenager about phone numbers, like I'll have to explain, like, no, it used to be it was very expensive to call out of your area code. Like that meant something. And like the first 2 digits of your phone number were the same for the whole region. Like,
Yeah. The first 3.
Yeah. When we got our first apartment, I had to change phone numbers because I was moving to a different part of town, and they're like, sorry, you can't, this phone number won't transfer. And it was like 5 miles that I was moving, but I couldn't keep it because it was tied to that. That was in 2004. And to think now, everyone has their own number that just goes with them.
And it
wherever.
doesn't matter anyway. Yeah. So that, I believe that the first 3 digits of your 7-digit phone number is called your exchange. So when I first started working in telecommunications, we were doing, I worked at a service provider, and we were doing digital phones. So you could transfer your phone number to us. And that was all well and good. We were transferring it from the traditional phone companies and, whatever, but then when people wanted to move, people had our phone numbers, had their phone number with us, this digital phone service, and they wanted to move. And so say their exchange is, 867. And they're like, oh, I want to move from, town X to town Y. Well, town Y is 877, whatever. Can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't move. You can't take that phone number because it's literally tied in the traditional phone system. It is literally tied to a switch that sits, a bank of ports that sits in a LEC somewhere near you, that then has all of the 4-digit numbers in it. And when you used all of those 4-digit numbers, up to 999, 876 99999, 9999, then you would have to put another exchange in, and you're like, oh, now it's 868.
Yeah.
And we have another 1,000 numbers that we can use for 868, and so forth and so on. That stuff, and it blew people's minds having to try to explain that to them. Like, well, my phone's digital. Well, right, but because we still interact with the traditional phone service, they can't transport your number. So if you ever call anyone with a regular phone, they can't get your phone number, yada, yada, yada. And I'm trying to explain to all those people. And once we got to a point where everything, even traditional phone systems, had gone digital, even before the last days of like a house phone, which, house phones still exist, but when you used to be able to call up AT&T and get a house phone, but it's like 2005.
Yeah.
By that time, those are, let's say 2010, those are then by that point all digital. But in 2005, there were still some remnants of that the old traditional phone system left, and so you had to abide by those rules. It's kind of like when you decide like how far can everybody in our group run, you've got to pick the distance of the person who can run the shortest amount, because that's how far they can all go. Well, we can hike a mile today because Tom can only hike 1 mile in a day. Okay, well that sucks because the rest of us could do 10, but we got to go with Tom. And that was the same thing. Like we had to go with what the least advanced technology was. And now the reason that I, for the longest time, had an out of state number for 10 years plus, I had an out of state number while living in North Carolina, was because that stuff is a thing of the past. Phone numbers are literally just numbers. I mean, even to a certain extent, area codes, the only reason that we need area codes are because the same numbers got given out, in different parts of the, so if we had always just had a 10-digit phone system and never cared about area codes or this and that, any of that, and just gave people 10-digit phone numbers sequentially and never duplicated a phone number, even area codes wouldn't matter today. But because we started with area codes and duplicated phone numbers, they're still, you can't do that yet. But there could be a point where they decide, okay, phone numbers aren't numbers anymore. They're like some algorithmic whatever, then phone numbers will go away.
It's going to be corporate sponsored.
Yeah.
I have the SpaceX phone number.
Called Jimmy John's.
Right.
Yeah, Jimmy John's Delta Sigma. That's
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
That's me.
That's me.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry for nerding out there. But
turn-
it's really good.
Yeah.
The phone hacking.
Yeah.
Or freaking, as it's sometimes called.
Well, and the impressive thing that he does is, so it's someone he's calling Higgins, who is, it isn't clear for a bit, but he turns out to be the good guy at the CIA.
The guy he can trust,
yes,
at the very least.
And he's calling him, and Higgins and everybody are trying to trace where his call is. Well, he's routed his call through like 50 different numbers. And so they have this, what's got to be not a real locator. It's like pulling up it's like a scan of a print map on the screen. Oh, no,
that's real.
Really?
Yes.
What?
That is real. So if that piece of technology might not be real, but that is real. So that is a projected map.
Yeah.
And it is essentially zooming in on parts of that map. So we were just, me and our son, we were just at the aviation museum. Mm-hmm. And they showed old radar systems, and they had that same technology. And there was some blurbs about that technology, how there's like basically a map on a piece of film strip, a full map. And they're essentially zooming in on that. You know, there's a lens in there. Mm-hmm. They're zooming in on that part of the map. So there's a static map inside that is like transparency material with light shining through the back of it. And then they literally are, in the case of some machines, moving the map around. Mm-hmm. In the case of other machines, they're moving the lens around. It depends. It's crazy early tech where they would literally show you on the map where stuff was, and they would do that's how they would do some of the radar stuff. And
well, what I mean is the way that this is, I mean, like it's zoom, it's here in Brooklyn, zoom, it's here in the Bronx, zoom, it's here in Queens. It's just
there could have been some, it's kind of like when they do hacking or something in a movie, and they kind of embellish it a little bit, but that actual machine almost certainly existed in some form. Okay. Maybe it wasn't even used for tracing calls, but that concept of a map and then it zooms in and it moves in. Yeah, that totally existed. It's crazy. When I saw that machine, I was like, oh my God, that's like the stuff we saw at the aviation museum.
So this is maybe not a spy thriller mystery. It's a telecommunications nerd movie.
It is kind of, yeah.
But anyway, so he's routed it through like 50 different locations, and so they have no idea.
They can't find it. It's the classic, It's the classic thing of, he has literally connected, daisy chained a bunch of things together.
So he's a ghost.
Yeah, so he's a ghost. Yeah. And he steals a test set, a handset from some phone linemen who are doing a repair, and he knows exactly what he's looking for because of his experience. Like, it's one of those things where he kind of, even though he goes through pains to say that he's not a spy, he's just a bookworm. Like, he sort of is unintentionally been trained
for exactly this.
Yeah, with a lot of the tools he needs to be a spy.
It's a little bit like Jason Bourne, as in like he doesn't think he has any skills and then he does. Yeah, and and not quite. Yeah, like he wasn't brainwashed or anything.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But it's fun watching because a lot of this stuff is just. It's just basic stuff. It's stuff that this is just how the phone system works, and he knows the phone system and he knows how it works
to his advantage. Yeah. So having then dispensed with Atwood, what happened was like the previous day, Turner had sent a theory about a text that he found. It was a book that was published in Venezuela, but it was published in Dutch.
Yeah,
and it was something. There's a
languages.
Connection between the Middle East and Venezuela and the Netherlands.
Yeah,
and it wasn't selling very well, but they continued to print it, or so there was something. It was just odd, and so he flagged that. Well, it turns out that he stumbled on the truth. There actually was some sort of a cartel between those three countries, and it was all about oil. And like, again, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
And so because they had gotten too close to the truth, they didn't realize what they had discovered, but still Wicks and Atwood were like, okay, we got to get rid of all these.
Well,
people.
and it's getting rid of them is paramount because Wicks and Atwood are an autonomous organization
Yeah.
operating within the CIA.
Yes.
And so they, now he has stumbled onto their secret communication essentially and is reporting it to the CIA. And so they don't want, it can't go any further. And we need to not only get rid of this guy who's smart enough to figure this out, probably everybody who's even seen it, because it's made very clear that Joe is a low man, and sort of everybody would have seen his report as it went up, maybe, except for maybe the secretary and the security guard. But, everybody, all of his colleagues would have seen his report. So like 6 of the 8 people or whatever, 5 of the 8 people would have seen his report.
Yeah. So, but then, so Joubert has taken care of Wicks, and then Atwood, and so that's all done, and there's no threat. But meanwhile,
so to be clear, the CIA pays Joubert to kill Atwood because the information that Joe provides to Higgins helps to reveal. He actually asks Higgins who is Atwood.
Yeah.
And that's so. And then so the CIA, which is again the beautiful thing about Joubert's character, is he gets a job from the CIA to be, and Joubert is talked up as this guy who was basically like, the CIA had parted ways with him because maybe he was like a little too surgical and clinical about his methods, maybe, or something. I don't know. Or maybe they caught him working for the enemy because he doesn't see sides in any conflict. But he was basically off the CIA books because he was not an adequate asset for them anymore. And that's why Wicks and Atwood were using him.
Yeah.
And then they say, like Joe says, did they bring you back? He's just for this one job.
Yeah. So that's all fairly wrapped up, and Joe goes to Higgins and is like, "Hey, guess what? I sent all this to the New York Times. Everybody's busted." And Higgins is like, "They're not going to print it." And Joe says, "Yes, they are." And then we're done, basically.
Well, and the thing is, like you were saying earlier, Higgins is kind of the good guy, but it turns out he's not. He's not a bad guy. But he has this whole exchange with Joe right at the end of the movie where, Joe is basically saying like, this is wrong what you're doing. Like you're plotting they're either plotting to like do coups in these oil bearing countries, or, they're fomenting resistance. They're possibly selling weapons to their enemies, whatever number of things that actually some of which came to be true in the 80s. And he's basically saying like, this isn't right. And Higgins' point is, and it's funny because this is right around the time of the gas crisis. Higgins is saying like, no, oil is the next water. Like people are, people who have never known, wanting for energy are going to know it soon enough. And the power is going to come down to who controls the oil. And wouldn't you rather that be the U.S. than any of our enemies or whatever? And Joe sees it much more in a morally black and white way of like, it's not right to take sovereignty from these countries and, to plot this, and, that the CIA doing what it's famous for, regime change and puppeteering these other nations. Yeah. And basically Joe understands that is wrong. And Higgins is like, no, this is just the way the world is, man. Like, you don't understand. And they're not going to, basically coming down to Joe saying they're going to print it because it's the right thing to do. It's the morally right, black and white morality would say it's the right thing to do because the U.S. is involved in regime change and toppling nations and, fomenting resistances and all this thing. And Higgins saying, no, they're not. They're not going to print it because the New York Times, just like me, understands that when the shit hits the fan, we need the oil because we need the gas.
Where their bread is buttered.
Yeah, because we need all of the products now here in the 1970s that are now derived from petroleum, not just gas, but all of the things that we have come to depend on.
All the plastic.
All the plastics, all these things. Like when it actually, they're not going to print it because when it comes down to it, they understand that it would be better, whatever you don't want to know how the sausage is made, essentially, that it would be better that the U.S. has these assets than doesn't have these resources. And there's no space in this world for your black and white, right and wrong morality because it's much more gray.
Yeah. And that all feels like a very mid-70s viewpoint on things because I think at this time first of all, we were grappling with the fact that there's sausage in the first place, right? Like the entire 60s just changed the landscape in so many ways, and assassinations and miscommunication and lies over Vietnam, and not the CIA, but Hoover had been with FBI until I think the late 60s, and then he died, and so then I think we learned all these people that he had under surveillance, and he was not using his power very well, and I think there was a massive distrust of the government institutions, and that exchange is that's a lot of what was the feeling was at the time, like. Yeah. We've got our fingers in a lot of pies, and this is better for the world in the end, except why do we have fingers in pies at all? This is, Yeah. I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and I was like, the number of wars that we could have avoided if we just let Russia be Russia and like let communism exist or not in the global marketplace of ideas. And it fell anyway. So I don't know if we really needed to fight those wars, but we had our fingers in all the pies. But it just all feels very, very 70s. I feel like by the 80s, we had come around to accepting, most of us had come around to accepting whatever the government did was in our best interests and not really questioning things. And then we moved back toward questioning everything. And now it's an obsession. Nothing doesn't get questioned.
Yeah,
but
really. Even things that should be.
Yes.
But yeah, I just quickly looked it up. 3 Days of the Condor, the book came out in 74, which was a year after the gas crisis.
Right.
So, would have been, and then the movie was released in 75. So potentially we're in a world where the gas crisis maybe hasn't happened yet, and especially given Higgins' speech of like people who've never known, never known the pump to be dry and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but still very clearly inspired by that.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's very popular now to question the government, not so much then. I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
yeah, it's I would say a very purposely ambiguous ending. There's the final shot, the final freeze frame is of Joe looking back through some like street performers back to where he left Higgins. And presumably Joe now sort of going out, he's got to be on the run now because he probably knows too much for the CIA to leave him out there. And he's sort of released this information to the New York Times as a means of trying to protect himself.
And I don't think they had whistleblower laws then.
Right.
So,
right. But like,
who's he going to go into protective custody with?
Right. And I imagine his hope would be that New York Times would publish it, and therefore the information that he has is irrelevant to the CIA anymore. And then he can only hope that they are sort of as emotionless about it as Joubert, and just like, there's no reason to kill him now because the information or bring him in or whatever they were going to do. It's
very
unclear.
pragmatic.
Yeah. At the end, he meets with Higgins. There's a car that's tailing them. That Higgins says is for Joe. And the story that Higgins is telling him is, let's bring you in, debrief you. You've done so much to expose this mole within our organization, but Joubert's words ring. Joubert literally has a moment where he says, someone will come for you and you will know him and he will have a car that he wants you to get into. And this literally
someone
is happening.
You trust, and
someone who you trust. It's literally happening. And Joe understands what's going on now. And he is, again, smart enough to know that if he gets in that car, he certainly doesn't, whether he lives or dies, he certainly doesn't come back to the life that he's in now. Whatever happens. Which is probably most likely he dies.
Yes. The whole thing has the feel of a pilot to a show where, our guy's on the run and he's got to hide, and he hides in hides in a new place every time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's the A-Team. It's like, these four military heroes. I can't. God, I watched the A-Team so much as a kid, and I can't even remember the intro. But basically, the intro of the A-Team is like, these guys were war heroes, and now the army has branded them criminals for acts that they didn't commit.
Yeah,
falsely accused of imprisoned for acts they didn't commit. Blah blah blah. Yeah, that's literally it's the start of the show.
Or The Fugitive when it was actually a TV show. That
exactly. And now from here, it is his adventures where he somehow gets into, deeper into people's lives than he means to, and has to help them before moving on to the next
little bit Quantum Leap
A little bit, yeah, a little bit Quantum Leap, a little bit the Incredible Hulk series has to move on.
Yeah.
Also, funnily enough, outside of the spy aspect of this, like the shell of this, like the outline of this plot, up until the point where it starts to get the Atwood stuff at the end, is just Commando. It's just guy has to, guy gets free from almost getting killed, has to kidnap lady, wins over the trust of the lady. Lady helps him accomplish his mission.
Yeah.
In this case, his is
right.
Exposing the government, whereas in was it Dutch? His thing is or Matrix, John Matrix. That's right. He's Dutch in Predator, I think.
Oh yeah.
He has to rescue his daughter. Yeah, but it's this sort of like, as I was watching, I was going like,
tick.
This is
tick,
Commando,
tick.
but like Commando, obviously years later. So like Commando is this, but it's just like.
But there's no Dan Hedaya in this.
True, and there's no muscly Arnold in this either.
No.
And no Australian mustache man who gets.
Well, what did I call it? Cosplay.
Some steam.
Cosplay Freddie Mercury.
Yes,
yeah.
It's like the buff, like the bear version of Freddie Mercury, like the big.
You know what there is though in this cameo by the World Trade Center.
Oh yeah.
Tear, R.I.P.
It is weird how, like, our son will never understand how ubiquitous the World Trade Centers were.
Yeah.
From the time they were built until 2001.
Yeah.
Like, they were just an aspect of the New York skyline. Like, once they were built, they took over the Empire State Building's
Well, they were huge. And that's what, like, I don't have the same emotional response to seeing them in older movies as you do. And I think a lot of people our age. But in this one, like there's shots like from, conversations on the ground, like right near the base of the towers. And then you look up and you're like, oh my God, because it was like 100, 110
it's huge,
stories. Yeah. You're like, oh my God, that is really tall, and then I'm like, the tallest building I've ever been in was like 50 stories. This is twice that. Oh my God, I guess it is really big.
Well, and, again, relating to 2001, driving home, like the section, like the New York office for the CIA is portrayed as being inside of one of the towers.
Right.
So
that's why
Right. So like giving you just a little bit, and like how much that wasn't a secret, that there were government agencies like the CIA operating outside from inside the World Trade Centers. One of the reasons that they were targeted the first time in the 90s, because it was known basically. It was the worst kept secret that like the CIA and FBI and other government agencies, secret government agencies, NSA, whatever else, operated in offices out of the World Trade Center.
Well, and I guess they were like, no one can attack this.
Right. Yeah.
How could you possibly?
Who would ever dare attack on American soil?
Oh, yeah. I was listening to a podcast today. They were like, remember in the 70s when everybody hijacked airplanes? That was fun when they just redirected them to a different airport and then everybody got home safe eventually.
They just wanted like 6 guys in Libya released from like, we want our comrades in, which is a great, and it's a great joke from the movie Die Hard, where he's making his demands and he's saying he wants this guy released and this guy and who, and he's like, I read about him in the New York Times. He doesn't want, he's just totally distracting, but that was always the thing, like 6 guys in trench coats with M16s or AK-47s got onto a plane.
We're gonna take a detour.
And, we're gonna go to a different airport where you're gonna have a fully fueled chopper waiting for us, and you're gonna release these 3 guys from whatever Astan or from wherever, our comrades from this place or that place, and they're
the People's Front of Judea, not the Judean People's Front, not those guys.
They released the guys. The plane landed. They killed the hijackers on their way to the helicopter, and then rearrested the 6 guys.
and everybody was traumatized, but nobody died. Yeah. Anyway, do we miss anything? I think basically you like this more than I did.
I really did. Like, this is one of those rare movies where I think I liked it more than you remember. I like it more than you currently like it.
Yes.
However you remember it.
Well, mostly I just wanted to show you that horrible sex scene, but you really like that too. So I don't know.
There's something to be said about it from an artistic standpoint.
Yeah, whatever.
But yeah, this movie, I really liked it. It is super slow. It is.
Yes.
It is. And I've actually talked to our son about this, and then now you've shown him some older movies like Hitchcock and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the differences in how things are paced, and how things were paced, and the length of dialogue scenes, and the amount of cuts and things that exist in movies.
Well, and the number of, I mean, I talked about the sex scene would be different, but there would be so many more explosions or big gun battles if you made this today.
Potentially. I think that there is a way to make it where that stuff doesn't happen as much. But yeah, I do agree that it would be flashier, if nothing else. Like, you know, it would be someone who is more possibly explicitly an action star. Like the Joe would be played by like Jason Statham or something. Although Jason Statham can't do an American accent, so it probably wouldn't be. But yeah, it would be somebody like that who is like kind of known for doing action enough that
Channing Tatum, but he doesn't look like a bookworm. So.
Yeah, or Matt Damon. Although I think he's kind of already made his spy world. He's put down his sort of
Chris Pine. He could do a bookworm.
Sure, yeah. Although wasn't he?
He was Jack Ryan.
Just for that, but just for the one movie.
Yeah. Anyway, well, the person who played, I think they changed all the names, so it's sort of kind of this movie, but not really. When they did the series, the person who played him was Max Irons, the son of Jeremy Irons.
Okay, sure.
And my chief impression of Jeremy Irons is my mom always said he looked like he was low on iron and you just wanted to take him home and feed him, like he needed fattening up. Like she was going to make him lots of cheesecakes and baking was her love language, and that's what she wanted to do for everybody was to give them baked goods. She wanted to give him custards and like put meat on his bones. So I'm assuming his son is not that different. So perhaps not a beefy action hero, but well, folks, that is 3 days of the Condor. And if you're wondering, if you want to look it up, it says it's the numeral 3, not 3 spelled out. Very important. I searched for THREE and it said, do you mean 3?
No one would name this movie 3 Days of the Condor or this book just purely for SEO purposes.
Well, you know what? It's funny. The novel, the original, is 6 Days of the Condor.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know why they shortened it, but some film executive was like, no one's going to go see if it's 6 days. You know, it's snappy. 3 days. People want the thrill is fast.
Yeah. 3 days, like a 3-day weekend. Yeah. People nobody gets a 6-day weekend. What are you talking about?
You get it done. 6 days sounds like a war. Yeah. Wasn't the 6-day war? Wasn't that in the 70s?
Probably.
3 days. 3 days is happy. We like happy. Anyway, well, we would love to know what you think about this. Do you agree with Dave that this is artistic and a good film school type thing? Or do you agree with me that that's a terrible sex scene and Faye Dunaway needs to realize it's Robert Redford? Be enthusiastic. Either is fine, I guess. You can reach out to us a couple different ways. You can send us an email at YSMYpodcast, YSMY for you show me yours, at gmail.com. Or you can use the same handle to find us on Facebook. You can DM us, and on our feed, we list links to all of our latest episodes, plus other fun stuff that we find. If I find anything about the series, I'll put that there. We have new episodes every other Wednesday, so 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode. And next time, Dave is hosting. And what are we watching next time, Dave?
Yeah, I left it as a game time decision. So I found some movies that are sort of adjacent to this in different ways. And the one that I decided to go with is the one that is, as Joe was an amateur in the spy world, we're going to go with the ultimate professional, Ethan Hunt, in Mission Impossible, the original Tom Cruise 90s Mission Impossible, which will keep us in the spy world. But yes, give us still the rogue agents and the evil within the, all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, we'll still get all that, but we get to see it from a real professional standpoint. Perhaps the most famous and mocked movie scene, maybe right behind the Matrix 3, spin around as she kicks, is so it's, if nothing else, we get to see and comment on the Tom Cruise
Yes.
flapping like a flounder just above the floor.
I'll recognize where a lot of memes came from,
Yes.
probably. So,
Oh yeah.
all right. Well, we will see you next time with Mission Impossible. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.